Hi, in this video I'm going to tell you about my experience learning Spanish, but you already know about that, so let's dive right in. About a year and a half ago, I started learning Spanish. I learned Spanish with a Mexican accent and Mexican vocabulary. I'm now pretty confident in Spanish. I think I don't commit too many mistakes, but you don't have to take my word for it. At the same time as this one, I'm posting a video where I'm speaking Spanish for like 10 minutes straight to the camera, improvising, so you can make an idea for yourself of what my level is. Except, I lied a little bit, sorry. I didn't start studying Spanish a year and a half ago, but more like 6 years and a half ago in middle school. As a French student, I had a choice to make. Either pick German as my third language or Spanish. My school didn't offer Italian. So I went for Spanish. I was heavily influenced by my family. Everyone was telling me that Spanish was a great language and spoken everywhere. So I did. For the next 5 years, I attended Spanish lessons at school. It was cool, but I didn't understand much, although I had very good grades because I would study for the tests and for what was expected to be on the test, and I would forget all about it the next day. I mean, it did give me some language exposure and some vocabulary, even though it was kind of always the same old academic useless stuff. For me, Spanish was just a harder version of French with harder conjugation, more dense grammar, and with a weird way of putting ideas together. Fast forward 5 years, I graduate high school, and then I travel after the summer after my graduation. I traveled for a month through Europe. It was an amazing experience, and I only used English for that. And I had not spoken English that much in a long time, and it felt amazing. And I just wanted to replicate that experience of being able to express myself in another language, a foreign language, with a third language. I wanted to have this experience with another language. So, an obvious choice for me was Spanish, as I already had notions of Spanish and I had a lot of Spanish-speaking friends. So it was a clear choice for me. At the time, I had not taught myself a language for a few years. I was not as involved in the language learning community as I am now. I didn't know all what I know now, so I was kind of lost as to how I can teach myself the language. So I got myself a Skillshare subscription. Well, it was a 2-month free trial, but that counts. And for 2 months, I took a course on there on how to speak Spanish. The course was decent, actually. It was not that bad. It was pretty academic, but it had me speak out loud a lot of the time. I had to translate sentences from Spanish to English or from English to Spanish, and I had to repeat after the guy, after his voice. So that was cool, and it did give me a little bit of a level. After those 2 months, I was able to have a very basic conversation, very slowed down with my Spanish-speaking friends, and I was really proud of that. But everything accelerated when I started actually immersing myself into the language. I started watching YouTube videos, watching shows on Netflix in Spanish, and just getting more interested about the Spanish culture and the Mexican culture. 1 minute. Okay. My light died. Alright, so I was saying I started immersing myself in the language with YouTube videos and Netflix shows. I started to be more curious about the culture overall, and I progressed much more. I got much more vocabulary, and I was just more aware of the language as a whole. And everything accelerated even more when I started having weekly video chat with one of my Spanish-speaking friends. She was helping me for a couple of hours every week to speak Spanish. So we would have chats, and she would correct me. That was really amazing. She would correct me and tell me when it was not natural what I was saying, or tell me how I could improve my pronunciation. And overall, she was helping me mejorar better my Spanish. But I have to stay honest, it was very uncomfortable at first. It was uncomfortable to switch to Spanish when I was only used to speaking English with her. It was uncomfortable for me to speak Spanish, period. It was very hard because it took me a lot of effort, a lot of concentration, especially for a longer amount of time. But it was a really cool experience overall because it got me to really improve my Spanish. I had a better pronunciation, my flow and my accent were better. I also got a much more realistic vocabulary. And yeah, my Spanish overall was better. But like at times, I would speak to her in Spanish and she would not get what I meant, or the other way around. It was complicated. It was a lot of effort, but it was always a nice time. And by the end, I was so exhausted that I would just go to sleep, but yet I would still dream in Spanish. It was pretty intense. But after those 2 months of active and passive practice, I achieved a bit of a level. I was kind of proud of it. I was able to tell what I was thinking and to understand most of what I was hearing, and that was really cool. But then I had another breakthrough when I had the chance to go to Los Angeles for a month. There I had the occasion to be immersed a few times in the language, and that was really cool. I had dinners in Spanish. When I went to stores where the staff spoke Spanish, I practiced my Spanish there, and I just overall heard a lot of Spanish. It made me much more comfortable speaking Spanish. I had this flow when I spoke Spanish that I had not before. It's still not perfect now, but I really saw an improvement when I was really immersed in the Spanish language and Mexican culture. That was really amazing. By the end of this month in Los Angeles, I started telling people that I spoke Spanish. Well, maybe a bit before, but I told myself that I officially spoke Spanish after this month in Los Angeles. So yeah, that was my experience learning Spanish. It was not all straight and linear. I had some rough times, but that's just to give you an idea of what you can expect. I mean, don't forget that I had taken 5 years of Spanish classes in middle school and high school, so this definitely helped. Even though I couldn't speak back then, I know that it helped me grasp the grammar a little bit, and it gave me some language exposure, which I can't deny. And everyone is different, so it's not like in 5 or 6 months you will reach fluency or whatever. No, maybe it will be more, maybe it will be less, depends on the speaker, on your language learning background. I am a native French speaker, so it definitely helped me because a lot of the vocabulary is the same between Spanish and French. Although there are a lot of false friends, it really helps to kind of be able to tell what the sentence is about, even though you've never heard of those words before. So what did I find complicated about the Spanish language? I think the grammar was the hardest part, for a few reasons. First, the way they order their ideas and their words in a sentence is very unnatural for me as a French and English speaker. It was weird. Sometimes it just doesn't make sense, the way they place their verbs and their subject, and they have double pronouns, which is unusual for me. I don't know, it just felt weird, but now I adapted to it. Also, the subjunctive mood has 3 tenses in Spanish as opposed to 2.5 in French, which was hard for me. There's like future, present, and past. It's pretty hard. And when it comes to pronunciation, it was not too hard for me because I'm a French native speaker, so the sounds were achievable for me, even at first. Except for the r. It took me a long time. Did I think about quitting? Yeah, a couple of times. A couple of times I was like, this language is hard. The grammar makes no sense. Why do they do things like this? And how can I even understand what they're saying? And will I even get there eventually? But I stuck to it. I stuck to it for a couple of reasons. For one, I had my Spanish speaking friends always drawing me back to the language as soon as I started learning Spanish, and as soon as I had the vocabulary for it, I started speaking Spanish with them, so they were always drawing me back to the Spanish language, and I was consuming content on the internet in Spanish, not directly related to Spanish, but in Spanish. So those two things were kind of making it more fun for me, and they were drawing me back to the language when I felt demotivated. And after I'd say like 3 months, I became obsessed with it, and I was like, I cannot quit. I will make it. I started speaking to myself as much as possible in Spanish. I was trying to think too in Spanish as much as possible, and I think that helped. Alright, my takeaways from all of this. What I found didn't work was a few things. Number one, the stare. If you hope that by staring at a verb table or vocabulary list you will analyze and then memorize and internalize this, no, it doesn't work. Like, it's useless. You can read in Spanish, that's fine, but just staring at some grammar stuff, hoping to internalize it, is a dead end. It doesn't work. Number two, input. Input has to be comprehensive. If you watch something in Spanish and you don't understand what's going on in the show, you don't understand the words, you don't get anything, it's useless. It's just going to get you bored and demotivated. So when you watch something, make sure you understand the gist of it, what's happening. There are a few solutions for that if you're not comfortable enough with Spanish to understand what people say in shows or movies. You can, one, check what's happening in the movie beforehand with a English sum up of the gist or the synopsis, sorry. Two, you can rewatch something you've already seen. I've done that with Spanish and it actually helped me. Or three, you can watch stuff that are more explicit. For example, YouTube videos, you have a thumbnail, you have a title, it's more illustrated, so you will be much more likely to understand what's going on. The news as well, they're very articulated when they talk, and it really helps. I actually watched the news a few times, and I found it easier to understand than shows or movies. About subtitles. Subtitles in Spanish are they're not that great because your brain is kind of lazy and it will choose reading over listening, which takes more effort. So I recommend you to turn off subtitles. And subtitles in English are, in my reckoning, useless because you just read. It's like reading and having people speak funny in the background with music over it. Doesn't really help. And that brings me to my last point. Don't think in English when you speak in Spanish. When you switch to Spanish, you switch to Spanish mode. It's another facet of your personality. It's another side of you. You think in Spanish and you speak in Spanish. You can't think in English and then translate it back, hear in Spanish, translate to English, think. No, this whole thing doesn't work. Because there are many terms that you cannot easily translate. That's one thing. And because it takes so much energy for nothing. I mean, like, it's much easier, not at first, but it gets easier to think in Spanish and speak in Spanish and just switch to Spanish mode. At first, you're gonna think that you're losing 40 IQ points. Yes, I'll give that to you. But it's all worth it, trust me. Overall, speaking Spanish has brought me so much. I met some amazing people and I've had so many cool life experiences. It's really amazing. The Spanish-speaking community is incredibly friendly. I have never regretted going up to someone when I hear that they speak Spanish in a public space to have small talk with them. It's always a good experience, when it's appropriate to do so, of course. The goal of this video is to really be transparent about how my learning went, my struggles, and what I found worked or didn't work. There are a lot of videos on the internet where people claim that they've learned languages in 3 months, 6 weeks, 7 days. I guess I understand what they're trying to do here. They're trying to show people that it's possible, it's achievable. Adults can learn languages as well. There are a lot of steps that you can skip, start speaking early and reach a decent level quickly. But no, you don't master a language in 3 months, in a handful of months, let alone 7 days. I mean, I've been speaking Spanish for more than a year now, and I don't like saying that I've learned Spanish. I still have things to improve on, and even though I have a good grasp of the Spanish and the Mexican culture, I've never lived there. So don't set unrealistic goals and be disappointed down the road. I mean, if you can not set any goal at all, it's better. Be impatient when it comes to practicing and going out there, meeting people, getting some practice time. But you should be patient when it comes to seeing results, because it's not gonna happen like this. I have a whole video about this, about the struggle of language learning on my YouTube channel. It's called the Rainy Day Theory. I recommend you watch this if you're interested. But yeah, don't trust those people that claim that they have learned languages in a handful of months. My advice for you is to always have fun when you practice your language, because you're gonna be demotivated at some point. You're going to feel like you're not learning at one point or another. It's going to be a lot of struggles, so making it fun will help you stick to it. And also make it a part of who you are. Just become that person that speaks Spanish, or that person that learns how to speak Spanish. That way you'll have no choice but to succeed. Thank you very much for watching my video. I had a lot of fun scripting it and presenting it to you. I hope you had fun watching it and that you found this interesting. I will do another video just like this about my experience learning Ukrainian. It should come in a few weeks. Check the video where I speak Spanish for 10 minutes straight if you're interested in seeing what I actually achieved. And if you have learned Spanish yourself, I'm actually curious about your own experience, so tell me all about it in the comment section down below. And I will tell you hasta luego.